The morning was still except for the persistent hum of cicadas and the scratchy wail of Johnny Cash pouring from the rusted radio of the barn. I was outside by the south pasture, struggling with a roll of barbed wire to repair a sagging fence, when a plume of dust caught my eye along the ridge road. It wasn't the sort kicked up by our beat-up truck, clean too intentional. Grandpa, leaning against a post with a cigarette hanging from his lips, squinted toward the horizon. "That ain't local," he grumbled, flicking ash into the ground. We stood by as a shiny white truck drove past our private property sign down the hill and parked boldly in the barn lot, right where Grandpa's hound enjoyed napping in the shade. The truck side said, HOA Patrol in block letters. A tacky magnetic sticker slapped on after an afterthought. No badge, no official seal, nothing but audacity on wheels. Two men climbed out. The first was young, barely out of high school, with the nervous stance of a man pulled along for the ride. The second, wearing knockoff aviators and grasping a clipboard like a scepter, strode forward with the air of a man who thought he owned the joint. They didn't look at the signs or the chained cattle gate they'd pushed open. Instead, they parked between the hay trailer and the feeding troughs, unaware of the disruption. Grandpa did not yell. He did not curse. He merely took a deep drag, grumbled, "Here we go," and wiped his hands on his jeans. I trailed behind, feeling this was going to be one of those times when Grandpa didn't require assistance, but I was not going to miss the spectacle. "Can you help me?" Grandpa asked, his tone even, but lined with a grit that signaled trouble. The clipboard man, addressing himself as Mitchell puffed up like he was addressing a crowd. "We're with the Clearview HOA expansion team," he said, over-enunciating every word. "We've had reports of zoning violations, unauthorized equipment, storage near your property line. Routine compliance check." Grandpa didn't respond. He turned, took a few steps toward the barn, then stopped and pointed at the tow rig parked by the fence. "You've got 30 seconds to move that truck," he said, voice flat as the prairie, "or I'm pulling it into the creek." Mitchell blinked and laughed, thinking it was a joke. The younger guy, probably some cousin tagged along on this, let out a nervous chuckle. But Grandpa was getting into his Chevy tow truck, the diesel engine roaring to life like a vengeance it hadn't displayed in years. I thought he was bluffing. We handled HOA wannabes before city types, throwing around buzzwords at the fence line, never bold enough to drive across it. But these two had left their cars in our working yard, spouting nonsense about regulations we didn't answer to. There wasn't an HOA within 10 miles of our ranch, and even if there was, they had no jurisdiction here. Grandpa hooked a chain to the HOA truck's rear axle with the precision of a man stacking firewood. Mitchell snapped out of his daze, waving his arms and screaming about lawsuits and impound violations. The younger fellow sprinted down the road, yelling. But Grandpa was pushing tires, twirling grass, ripping, as he pulled the glittering white truck out of the lot beyond the gravel path and down the muddy slope to the creek. The Wasner rains had made the ground slippery, ideal for humbling the proud. He slammed the brakes just long enough to time the swing, then let go of the chain with a clunk of protest. The truck in neutral, and at gravity's mercy slid nose first into the shallow creek bank. Water splashed, mud flew, and the HOA decal peeled like it was ashamed to be seen. Mitchell stood frozen, his aviators lost in the chaos. His socks soaked his face red as the barn paint. "Tow it out yourself," Grandpa said, stepping out of the rig like he'd just done a chore. "Next time, bring a badge." I was doubled over, laughing so hard I could barely breathe. The young man struggled for his phone, attempting to video, but Grandpa beat him to it. He took a photo of the truck half in water and called the sheriff. Had some trespassers who said they were HOA. He said, "Come verify their paperwork before I threw the clipboard into." 15 minutes later, Deputy Carter pulled up. Lights off, window down. He spotted Grandpa and smiled. "Didn't read the sign, huh?" he asked, looking at the wet truck. "Didn't read much of anything." Grandpa responded by tossing him a towel from the horse trough. Carter laughed and then approached Mitchell, who was dripping like a drowned rat. His bravado swept away by the creek water. "ID," Carter demanded. Mitchell held out a laminated card that resembled something cobbled together in a basement. Carter didn't even give it a hard look. This indicates you're a compliance observer for Clearview HOA, he read, voice heavy with disdain. That HOA earned itself a name, Mitchell grumbled. Clearview Expansion Division. Carter pocketed card into his notepad. Funny, no such HOA exists in this county. And even if it did, you've got no right to park on private land without permission. Mitchell stammered about proposed jurisdictions and boundary assessments, but his buzzwords fell flat. Grandpa popped open the truck's back, revealing a clipboard, some folders, and a walkie-talkie. Carter gloved up, flipped through the papers, and pulled out a folded map. Our ranch was circled in red with notes about water access and non-compliant acreage. A line ran from our creek to a green-shaded development zone. This ain't compliance, Carter grumbled. This is a plan. He radioed for backup, and a zoning officer, his eyes narrowing at Mitchell. The younger guy, sweating, finally spoke. I just ride along. My uncle told me it was a property group job. I didn't know it was illegal. Who's your uncle? Carter asked James Heron. The kid blurted. Grandpa's eyebrow twitched. Heron was the slick developer who'd been agitating subdivisions in town meetings, having called ranchers land hogs in a bitter argument with Grandpa. The pieces were falling into place. Carter ordered up a tow crew and faced Mitchell. You're coming with me. Mitchell tried one last desperate defense, maintaining that he was merely a liaison. But Grandpa cut him short. Lucky, I didn't have the backhoe attached, he said, dumping the empty clipboard into the grass. The tow truck showed up, and Carter explained that this wasn't merely trespassing. Other counties had been victimized by similar scams. Phony credentials, pressure moves, and forged access contracts. We hadn't merely apprehended trespassers. We'd caught the front men for a land grab. Mitchell was led away, head down. The kids remained sitting in the grass, grumbling about believing it was a summer job. Grandpa placed a soda on the fence post beside him and walked away without speaking. That evening, we set up a trail camera by the creek, suspecting more trouble. Sure enough, at dawn, it caught two men. One with a measuring wheel, another with a GPS pole mapping the creek bend. They were dressed in vests with a logo identical to the survey stakes we'd found planted illegally along the tree line. We brought the footage to Carter, who printed it and called a state investigator. The investigator showed us photos of other properties hit by the same scam: bulldozers, pipelines, and Harlan's logo on the equipment. They're testing limits, he said, shoving where they believe no one is looking. Grandpa's response was straightforward. They chose the wrong ranch. The next morning we came across Heron himself near the creek, silver-haired and self-satisfied with two toadies in tow. He unfolded a map on his SUV's hood, gesturing as if he was slicing up our property. Grandpa approached calmly as death. Morning James Heron smiled, saying, Didn't see you up early? I didn't expect your boots on my creek. Grandpa fired back. Harlan dismissed it, discussing field reconnaissance and future value. Grandpa took a step forward. You sent phony HOA thugs, planted stakes without permits, and now you expect a smile to cure it. Harlan's smile stuttered. Sam, be reasonable, there's money in this. A 20-foot easement, top dollar. Grandpa's eyes constricted. I'd notice every time your trucks stop where my grandkids fish, every time your pipes overflow my field. Each time I reflect on you hacking up my property without knocking, Harlan's tone grew tougher. You'll regret this. Sam, progress advances. I just need you to stumble first. Grandpa told me I began recording. Harlan saw my phone and stormed off, his flunky following. We completed a new fence that day, barbed wire, solar lights, cameras, with trespassers photographed and led by bulls. A county official subsequently affirmed Harlan's utility corridor assertion was unfounded. No permits, no surveys. His office was busted, exposing forged documents and illegal expansion schemes. The state suspended his permits and his business failed under fraud allegations. Harlan took off, leaving a trail of irate landowners. A package showed up weeks later. Drone shot of the creek, our fence sparkling, the HOA truck still rusting in the mud. A red marker note said, We got the message. Grandpa propped it against the barn wall. A quiet trophy. The creek ran clear again, but the fence stood firm, a line of respect carved in wire and remembrance. Harlan came for the water, but Grandpa ensured he drowned in his own plot.